What did that 82-year-old man post?
Well, let's back up a minute.
What you're about to witness is pure political theater at its peak. An ex-Trump advisor, someone expected to be polished and ready to defend their positions, completely falls apart the moment a British reporter hits them with one straightforward question. Just one question, and the entire act crumbles. But this isn't just one embarrassing interview. It's a pattern we've seen over and over with Trump's inner circle. They enter brimming with confidence, armed with talking points. But the second real pushback comes, they stumble, freeze, and reveal how weak their defense truly is. And trust me, you want to stay with me until the very end, because the exchange only gets more telling as it unfolds. It's the kind of clip that doesn't just make you shake your head. It makes you wonder how someone this unprepared and spineless could ever be trusted with influence.
It's funny that you think that he's taking a dig. Do you not think that when an 82-year-old man is arrested for posting something on Facebook, that is not a form of censorship?
Well, it depends what he posts, doesn't it? Depends if it's legal.
Well,
what did that 82-year-old man post?
Well, let's back up a minute here. If we are starting to scrutinize everything that someone says, if we're arresting them because it is hate speech.
What is that? You mentioned a specific case there. What is it this 82-year-old was arrested for?
Honestly, I can't remember, but what I do remember...
You're telling me that it's outrageous that an 82-year-old man was...
Back up a minute.
No, sorry, this is important, because you just said this is an example of free speech under threat in the UK, but you can't tell me what he was arrested for.
I don't remember the
So why are you bringing it up, then?
I brought it up as an example that if we are scrutinizing what an 82-year-old man posts on Facebook...
But you can't assess that without knowing what he said, can you?
Well, you know what? Let's just say I brought up a wrong example because I don't have the context
Could it possibly
right
be
now.
because it's all a load of nonsense and free speech isn't under threat in the UK at all, which I think you've just demonstrated respectfully?
You know what? I've been there I've lived in the UK for 24 years. And yes, I do believe that censorship, it started with political correctness.
Right.
And as political correctness moved from accusing people of microaggressions and then people getting triggered over what somebody said, it has been a form of putting a speech straitjacket on people.
So what can't you say in the UK right now without being arrested that you think people should have the right to say?
You know what? That's a very good question.
It is. Thank you.
It is. I can't answer that question, and I can't give you an example exactly. But see, what I find interesting.
Sorry, Jane. You've given me an example of free speech being under threat. You can't tell me what the person said.
Well,
I've asked you for one single thing that you can't say in the UK without fear of being arrested, and you can't think of anything. It's because Britain still is a country, compared to the United States, by the way, where free speech absolutely exists and always will.
Well, we both see it differently then.
But you can't give me any single point of evidence whatsoever to back up your idea.
Why don't you give me an example of how free speech still exists and censorship is not there?
Because you don't get arrested by the police for saying anything that isn't incitement or hate speech in this country. People are free to express their opinions. People are free to give their views. We do not have a police state in this country, unlike, I might say, the way that the United States is going under Donald Trump.
Well, you know, that's interesting because it's not going that way with Donald Trump. It was going that way, and it's now reversing itself.
Right. So banning journalists from the White House because you don't like what they've written, demanding the impeachment of judges because you don't like what they've ruled, sacking government officials because they've dared to criticise you at any point in recent years, defunding universities because they're not doing what you do, threatening law firms if they don't toe the party line, defunding media organisations that you think are against you, arresting students because of what they've written on social media, and ramping up checks of people entering the UK to check they haven't posted anything on Facebook that you don't like, doesn't amount to any sort of attack on free speech.
That's really twisting things without the specific examples. You're giving you're giving examples the same way I gave the example.
But you didn't give any examples, and I've just given you 10.
No, you've just given me a very biased perspective.
Bias is facts. All of those things have happened. Which of those haven't happened? Have journalists been banned from the White House under the Trump administration?
Have journalists been banned, or have they brought in alternative media that presents a different
I'm not talking about
angle?
Have journalists from organisations like the Associated Press been banned by the White House, yes or no?
Do you think Trump's allies keep failing under tough questioning because their arguments are weak or because they're not prepared? What's your take?
Yes, they have.
Right. Have judges been threatened with impeachment because the White House doesn't like their rulings? Yes or no?
Let's not do it that way. Let's go back to that. And yes. Why were they? Why were they banned?
But so we accept, right? Are we accepting that all the things I just suggested have happened?
If you don't let me finish, then we can't really have a conversation here, because you've got a very biased perspective.
I'm not
here,
biased at
a
all.
very angle.
I'm giving you facts, and I'm just asking whether you recognise that those things are true.
No. You know what? It's so interesting. Did we not have a bunch of fake news here? And in the U.S., we did. And why? Why did we have fake news? Because it was biased and it was wrong. And so that is one of the reasons. You know, you're listing 10 things and cutting me off. But then why was the Associated Press no longer welcome? Because they gave fake news that has been proven.
But Jen, you coming on the national radio station here on LBC and saying an 82-year-old man being arrested is an attack on free speech without having a clue what he's actually said is not fake news at all.
It's not. It's not that I haven't had a clue. I can't remember the specifics. Right. But the fact that.
But how can you know it's an attack on free speech if you can't remember what he'd actually said?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because you started this off by saying J.D. Vance had a dig. And so we don't get to have an intelligent discussion about whether there really is censorship going on, if people are afraid to speak out. But
he has had a dig, and that's his own language. He said previously when he talked about the UK...
No, you called it a dig.
Now here's where it gets almost laughable. This isn't even Dr. Jan Halper's first meltdown on air. She strolls in with her doctor title and her old Trump advisor badge like that's enough to carry her through. But the second she faces real pushback, the whole act unravels. The talking points vanish, the confidence evaporates, and what's left is someone scrambling for words like a student who forgot to study for the test. And honestly, if this is supposed to be the intellectual A-team defending Trump, what does that say about the foundation of their entire argument? You'd expect composure, facts, clarity, but instead we get stumbles, contradictions, and desperate pivots. The irony is brutal too. She tried to frame her argument around censorship, but the example she used fell apart the moment the reporter pressed her. Meanwhile, if you actually want to talk about free speech under threat, you don't need to look at the UK. You just need to rewind to Trump's record in the US, where critics were sidelined, universities were threatened with funding cuts, media outlets were blocked, and protest itself was treated like a crime. That's not free speech, that's authoritarian stagecraft. And when she was asked the simplest question, what did J.D. Vance actually do? She had nothing. Not a shred of evidence. Not even a halfway decent spin. Just awkward pauses, circular talking, and a live collapse for everyone to hear. And that's the larger pattern. Trump's defenders march into these interviews full of bluster, but the moment someone pushes back, it all comes crashing down like a house of cards. They keep banking on titles and credentials to shield them, but titles don't matter when you can't answer basic questions. And that's the tell. The weakness isn't just with one person fumbling an interview, it's with the entire defense of Trump's record. They know it's flimsy, they know it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, And what we see in these interviews is desperation dressed up as authority. So yeah, watching Dr. Halper unravel yet again is embarrassing. But more than that, it's proof that when confronted with facts, their spin doesn't just wobble, it collapses completely.